Hey guys, Youngblood with you to talk about the first Q&A post that we have on the new Anvil Terrapin. Now the Terrapin is a ship that's got a lot of hype, and like with most exploration ships, it gets a lot of people really excited, but there was quite a bit of vagueness in that original release document. So let's go through some of what they answered. Now when you start talking about the modularity of this ship, specifically that center seat, and whether it can be removed in favor of other modules, the answer was no, that the seat is firmly in place and is considered the heart of the ship. So not only does that tell us that you're not going to be, putting in a med bay or a mining refinery or something like that, but it also suggests that you're going to be doing most of your work in that seat. And you could almost sort of envision jumping into a new system or an area, climbing out of the pilot seat, and then heading to that scanning station, doing your work there. But it doesn't sound like most of the work is going to be done from the cockpit or the pilot seat like it's done on something like the Prospector, which means that having the durability on this ship is a good thing, since it's going to take you longer to get moving if threats should come along, since you have to run back up to the front of the ship. We also get confirmation that the ship does not have an ejection seat because it provides a weak point in the structure, which makes sense, I guess, considering you're talking about a ship who's specifically designed to be as durable as possible, but that does mean that if you're going down, you need to run out the side of the ship instead of being able to just yank on the cord. Now the ship isn't going to be maneuverable and it's not going to be fast, so they say that running isn't really the best option, assuming you do come under fire, and that you're better off using advanced tactics or the defensive capabilities to survive that encounter. Now we know the ship has extra armor, but that lack of a well-covering turret and the low maneuverability really does mean that you're better off taking advantage of that advanced scanner to see the threats coming from a long way off and getting the heck out of Dodge before things get too hairy and you have to get creative. Especially when you consider what we know about this ship and how it's going to put off a large signature, so you're likely going to be seen from a long way out as well. Now they expect that, or they go on to expand that the ship's armament, basically on top of that utility mount, you're not going to be able to swap that out for weapons, really. You're going to be limited to that nose mount as far as your offensive capabilities are concerned. Now, they say that you're going to have future modularity on that mount, even though they know this platform has application in other roles. Just initially, it's not going to have a lot of those. But potentially, we'll see things like mining or salvage utilities, as they asked in the question. But considering the interior ability to pull those things into the ship becomes a little bit more challenging, I think things like a electronic warfare suite is a more likely add-on that kind of applies to the ship's design overall. Now, the ship is far from aerodynamic, so while the atmospheric flight is possible, they do expand to a point to say that if weather is bad enough, you may end up being better off waiting it out on that planet. Now, that could mean nothing. It could also mean that certain planets could be dangerous for you to take your ship down to, because maybe you would be able to survive it totally fine, but if it's got a really bad environment and a constant state of flux, you may have a hard time actually getting off that planet. Cargo, like with most of these Q&As, was asked about, and we find out that there's no official cargo allotment, but that doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of having interior space that's just open to kind of fill up with salvage or other goodies that you may find on your trip. Especially when you consider this as an exploration ship, you might find some pretty cool stuff that you want to bring back with you. Though it is not as secure because you're not going to be locking it into like those locking cargo panels. The range on the ship is expected to be very long, with huge fuel tanks both for standard hydrogen fuel and the quantum fuel, and it does have a bed included, as the rolls are really intending for this ship to be out like for months at a time. And finally, we find out that there's no docking collars on the ship, so you're going to have to really EVA or land in order to move between vehicles and different surfaces. Now, I'm hoping in the second part of the Q&A that we should be getting tomorrow that we get more information about how it compares to other Explorers, because even though the question was asked about the Freelancer Dur, it didn't answer anything as far as the comparison between the ships. So a real detailed comparison between the Freelancer, the 315, and the Carrack, and any other exploration ships would be really helpful, especially if you only plan on owning one. We can kind of assume that you're going to have better defensive abilities in this ship, but as far as scanning and stuff goes, we don't really know what the differences are. But in the meantime, if you have questions or comments, get them in the field below. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned for part 2. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.